Ladies and gentlemen, I am not a perfect man. I make mistakes, I make judgment calls too early, and I feel like I've condemned the current IDW G.I. Joe series much earlier than I probably should. Issue number 1 wasn't a good start, but I recently caught up with the G.I. Joe series, which at the time of recording is issue 2, 3, and 4 that I've read, and I've got to say, things have improved quite steadily. I won't say it's great, I won't say it's perfect, but I think we've entered a territory where it's an acceptable G.I. Joe comic, as opposed to the mess that I feel the first G.I. Joe issue was. I have 3 points, 1 point for each new issue, that I think I really want to talk about with these issues. Issue number 2 helped me. It really explained G.I. Joe better than the first issue. Basically it shows them training, and one of my largest issues was with G.I. Joe being made out of civilians who freak out over killing someone and not having any actual training. This issue fixes it a bit. We see that Scarlet is military trained, and that this isn't just a ragtag bunch of resistance people. These are people trained by an actual military unit. G.I. Joe isn't even exactly these civilians. G.I. Joe is training these civilians to become part of G.I. Joe, and I think that's a much better explanation than what I got out of issue 1. So we see these people train. We see it was something that was really needed to see these people train. It fixes a lot of my issues with G.I. Joe issue 1. Also, we get hints that Duke might not actually be dead, or he might not be dead in the long run. He might come back, which since we're setting up the scene for Duke returning, I think that's probably better than just killing him off in the first issue of what is supposed to be a new continuity. But issue number 2 really fixed the training issue, I feel. Issue number 3, one of my issues with issue number 1 was how the Cobra G.I. Joe or Cobra America conflict didn't really seem to make sense to me. I didn't know exactly what Cobra believed in. I didn't understand why people were rebelling in Cobra-occupied society. Issue number 3 ask the same exact questions I do. I have this problem that you especially see in modern day media, where like there are the bad guys and there are the good guys, and the good guys is a bunch of diverse people, you know, coming from the street, and the lower classes fighting up against the bad guys who are, you know, like who are all white men and who are all upper class. And you could do something interesting with that, but I think a lot of writers these days kind of take that and say, that's it, that's the conflict. That's how we need to change society in the now. But like the society they show, obviously when you have a society ruled by have the patriarchy in power, you're not gonna see like Nazi level stuff in the streets that will explain why there's a resistance, which makes you wonder why we should be rooting for the heroes if the everyday person seems to be doing just fine. Issue number 3 has characters ask that question. We see that it follows up on how I was saying issue number 1, life under Cobra doesn't seem that bad for the average person. And then issue number 3, Roadblock asked that same exact question. It'd be one thing if it was just black and white, but the fact that we have a good guy character asking these questions is very important. It really makes this conflict a bit more interesting. Also, throughout these issues, we get more hints trickled in about what Cobra is. We'll talk about that more when I get to issue number 4. But issue number 3 really helped me. The tropes that I thought was going to pop up with this new G.I. Joe series in regards to the Joes versus Cobra were dashed away at least a little bit with issue number 3, which let me breathe a sigh of relief. Issue number 4 focuses a lot more on Cobra. We see a little bit more about Cobra. It focuses on Major Blood, but I thought it was a cool issue. It's explained a little bit more about Cobra. I know we have an issue coming out soon that's going to go more in detail about the war Cobra fought to take over the world, which I'm still iffy on the whole Cobra just took over the world thing. There's a lot of logistics to be involved with taking over the world. A lot of military stuff, a larger chain of command than we've seen so far in issue 4. But we do see the Baroness, who is pretty cool. We do get this new character named Damon. And Damon, I think her design is pretty cool. And as a character, I have a good first impression. So I look forward to see how Damon is more fleshed out in the future. But Damon might be the first original character in this series that I actually like. We see Cobra Commander, and Cobra Commander seems like a mix of the traditional Cobra Commander look and a little bit of Crake, which again, it sort of falls into the category of the IDW Transformers comics where, yes, technically it's a new continuity, but there are bits and pieces here from the previous continuity that if you've read the previous continuity, you'll get more out of it. And it really makes me wonder, especially with the Transformers, if there's not like... I don't think this is going through the writers' minds right now, but at some point in the future, as the continuity goes on, if we're going to get this thing sort of like how DC did with, with DC Comics, with Rebirth, and reveal that this rebooted universe is actually the old universe and just some cosmic stuff has gone on, and then they can restore the old universe, like sort of how DC's doing with the... Well, right now DC's in a sort of mix of old universe and New 52 universe in this Rebirth era. Maybe they could do something like that with IDW. I will say, issue number 4 made Cobra. I thought Cobra was going to be like, oh, these are the bad guys, so we don't want to develop them. But Cobra gets developed. We see it be a little bit more nuanced and intricate than just a bad guy organization. You know, we see characters have their own agendas and have their own ideologies separate from one another, and that's great. That's interesting. What was I about to say? But I think I really these next 3 issues that I just read really redeemed the G.I. Joe comic book after a poor start with issue number 1. And frankly, I've been curious about it, but I do want this G.I. Joe book to be part of a Hasbro universe. I've asked the writer of this book if this current G.I. Joe book is part of a shared universe with the Transformers comics. He was doing a Q&A on Twitter, and I asked that question. That was one of the questions he didn't answer, which opens up the possibility that maybe this could be part of a new Hasbro universe with Transformers, with the current Transformers series going on right now. And I wouldn't want that if the G.I. Joe series sucked, but these issues I've read really redeemed it. So I hope it all comes together. But yeah, these issues really redeemed G.I. Joe. I think that might be the title of this video. But this is just the next installment of me carrying out my promise of reviewing every issue of the current G.I. Joe series. Expect a new video reviewing the IDW Transformers series soon, and maybe even Transformers Galaxies. I know that I originally was going to do like arc by arc, but now that I'm uploading daily, I can afford to do it issue by issue, so let's just catch up with what we need to do here. Alright, so anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Check out all my social media links in the description below. Consider supporting me on Patreon if you want to see this channel continue running. And yeah, have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Huge thanks to our patrons, including this month's $10 plus patron, Josh Adkins. Check out the description for more patrons and more info about how you can receive a shout out here.
Super soft